Ever wonder what happens when a neighborhood tyrant picks a fight with the wrong guy? Let me take you back to a sunny Saturday in Oakwood Grove, where I, Mike Larson, found myself squaring off against the most infamous HOA president our little community had ever seen, Veronica Hayes, or as everyone whispered behind her back, the ultimate Karen. This wasn't just a spat over lawn ornaments or mailbox colors. This was the day Veronica's reign of terror came crashing down, and I was holding the camera that caught it all. It all started with a ridiculous piece of paper slipped under my door. My kids, bless their hearts, had spent a whole afternoon turning our driveway into a masterpiece of hopscotch grids and rainbow swirls with sidewalk chalk. To me, it was art. To Veronica, it was unauthorized driveway defacement, complete with a DO Law 50 fine. This was the third violation notice in 2 weeks. The first was for a garden hose I hadn't coiled to her exact specifications, and the second was for my basketball hoop, which she claimed was 2 inches too tall. 2 inches. I'd lived in Oakwood Grove for 5 years, and Veronica had gone from an annoying busybody to a full-on dictator. She'd roamed the streets with a clipboard, snapping photos of people's yards without permission, measuring grass blades with a ruler, and slapping fines on anyone who dared to breathe wrong. Most folks just paid up to avoid her wrath, but when I saw my 7-year-old daughter, Lily, crying because her chalk drawings were illegal, something in me snapped. I wasn't about to let this slide. I dug into the HOA bylaws, called up my buddy who's a lawyer, and confirmed what I suspected. Not only were most of Veronica's rules pure nonsense, but I had every right to film her in public. So, I decided to confront her at the HOA's monthly open office hours, phone in hand, ready to record every word. When I walked into the community clubhouse, there she was, perched behind the desk like she owned the place. Her eyes locked onto me, and her lips curled into that fake, icy smile. "Mr. Larson," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. "Here to pay those fines, I presume?" I set my phone on the counter, the red record button glowing. "Actually, Veronica, I'd like to talk about these violations. I've read the bylaws, and there's nothing about sidewalk chalk on private driveways." Her face twitched, and she shot up so fast her chair skidded back. "Are you recording me?" she hissed, leaning over the desk. "You can't do that without my consent." I stayed cool as a cucumber. "We're in a public space, Veronica. I'm documenting our talk to keep things clear. Perfectly legal." Her voice climbed higher, and she started throwing around threats, fines for harassment of an HOA official, for violating privacy policies. A few neighbors who'd come for office hours started inching toward the door, but I noticed some pulling out their phones, quietly filming the showdown. Veronica wasn't HOA-ing it. "You need to leave. Now!" she barked, storming around the desk and jabbing a manicured finger toward the exit. I held my ground. "I'm here during open hours to discuss legitimate concerns. I'm happy to take this outside if you'd rather." I turned and stepped onto the sidewalk, hoping to cool things down, but Veronica followed me like a hurricane. "You've been a problem since you moved here," she spat, her finger now inches from my face. "Always questioning my authority. Do you know how hard I work to keep this neighborhood perfect?" Her voice was a full-on shout now, and a small crowd of neighbors had gathered, whispering and watching. I kept my phone steady, capturing every second. "Veronica, I respect the HOA's purpose, but these violations aren't in the bylaws. I'm just asking for fair rules we all agreed to." That's when she lost it. With a scream that could have shattered windows, she lunged forward and slapped my phone out of my hand. The crack of it hitting the pavement echoed like a gunshot. "There!" she shouted, a smug grin spreading across her face. "Now you can stop your illegal spying." For a split second, everything went quiet. Then Mrs. Alvarez from across the street called out, "I got it all on video, Mike." Another neighbor was already on the phone. "Yes, officer, I'd like to report an assault and property damage at the Oakwood Grove clubhouse." Veronica's triumph melted into confusion. "Assault? Don't be absurd. He was harassing me, Filming without consent, she insisted, looking around for allies who weren't there. I picked up my phone, the screen now a spiderweb of cracks but still recording. Veronica, I said, my voice low and steady. You just assaulted me and destroyed my property in front of witnesses. That's illegal. Filming in public? Not so much. The crowd murmured, and I could feel the tide turning. The police rolled up in minutes, 2 officers, calm and professional. Veronica flipped a switch, suddenly all sweetness and VY Timhood. Officers, thank goodness you're here, she cooed, her voice syrupy. This man's been harassing me, filming me without permission, causing a scene. The male officer turned to me. Sir, what's your side? I started explaining, but Veronica kept cutting in until the female officer snapped. Ma'am, let him speak. I laid it out, the violations, the bylaws, the confrontation, and the phone slapping. I showed them my cracked phone and pointed out the witnesses. Mrs. Alvarez stepped up, offering her VY Dale. I caught the whole thing from over there, she said. She hit his phone out of his hand, no provocation. Other neighbors nodded, some holding up their own recordings. The officers watched the VY Deos, asked a few questions, and shared a quick look. The female officer turned to Veronica. Ma'am, based on the EVY Denkayan statements, we're arresting you for assault and destruction of property. Veronica's jaw dropped. What? This is outrageous. I'm the president of this HOA. You can't arrest me for defending myself, she shrieked as the officer read her rights. The VY Deos show you striking Mr. Larson's phone, the male officer said calmly. Being HOA president doesn't put you above the law. They cuffed her, and the neighborhood watched, stunned, as Veronica Hayes, a woman who'd ruled Oakwood Grove with an iron fist, was led to a police cruiser, her face a mix of shock and fury. This isn't over, Larson, she yelled as they shut the door. You'll pay for every bylaw violation I can find. I stood there, holding my broken phone, feeling a strange mix of relief and disbelief. The fallout was swift. Veronica was charged with misdemeanor assault and destruction of property. She spent 4 hours in a holding cell before posting bail. 3 days later, the HOA board held an emergency meeting and suspended her pending her case. The VY Deos spread like wildfire through our neighborhood's social media, and people I'd never met stopped me to share their own Veronica horror stories, fines for flower pots, warnings for kids riding bikes too loudly. At her court hearing 2 weeks later, Veronica stuck to her story, claiming she felt threatened by my filming. The judge wasn't buying it. Ms. Hayes, he said, his voice firm. Filming in a public place while you're acting in an official capacity is not illegal. Assault and property damage, however, are. He sentenced her to 6 months of probation, due law $850 to replace my phone, and a due law $1,200 fine for the assault. The real blow came at the next HOA meeting, where she was booted from the board by a near-unanimous vote. As the gavel fell, Veronica gasped. This is my neighborhood. I've given everything to this community. But the room was done with her. Oakwood Grove hasn't been the same since. The new board's rewriting the bylaws, and folks are finally speaking up. Me? I'm just glad my kids can draw their chalk rainbows in peace. But I'll never forget the day Veronica Hayes learned that her clipboard didn't make her untouchable and that a cracked phone screen was worth every second of exposing her for who she really was.